Is set down for first reading. The House comes to questions for oral answer. Question number 1. In the name of Nuk Korako.
Ai, te mana whakawā, a tēnā koe. E huri noe te whare paramata nei, e mihi atu ka koutou katoa. My question, sir, is to the Minister of Finance. How is the government's fiscal strategy supporting resilience in the New Zealand economy?
Order. The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it was important to support the economy during the global financial crisis and the Canterbury earthquakes, and during that period the government ran up considerable debt. But following these events, we've worked hard to turn the government's finances around. The latest forecasts are that government debt will plateau about 26% of GDP before falling to 20% of GDP by 2020. This compares to current net debt levels of around 20% in Australia, 38% in Canada and 80% in the UK and the US. The government aims to get on top of debt so that we're in a position to respond to any significant economic shocks in the future.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Nuk Korako.
Kia ora. How does New Zealand's macroeconomic resilience compare internationally?
The Honourable Bill English.
Using information from the OECD, Treasury have collated a list of countries that have the following features of macroeconomic resilience: a broadly balanced government budget, net debt less than 40% of GDP, economic growth greater than 1.5%, and scope to further cut interest rates. New Zealand meets all of these criteria, and in fact there are only 4 other OECD countries that meet those criteria: Australia, Norway, Iceland and South Korea. So this illustrates that New Zealand is in a good position to deal with any turbulence in the global economy.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Nuk Korako.
How does the government's fiscal strategy affect inflation, interest rates and the exchange rate?
The Honourable Bill English.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, responsible fiscal management can reduce inflationary pressure. It gives the Reserve Bank more scope to cut interest rates, which supports businesses to invest and help families with their mortgages. Lower interest rates can also influence a lower exchange rate, and that certainly happened in the last 6 months or so in New Zealand. Low inflation, lower interest rates and a lower exchange rate right now are helping to support moderate, sustained growth of around 2 to 2.5%.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Nuk Korako.
Kia ora. How does sustained moderate economic growth translate into more jobs and higher incomes for New Zealand families?
Order. There were a number of complaints into my office about the level of interjection and noise yesterday. Yesterday they were coming from all sides of the House. To date there's been a strong level of interjection from my left, which must not continue. I invite the member to ask that third supplementary question again.
Kia ora te mana whakawā. To the Minister of Finance, how does sustained moderate economic growth translate into more jobs and higher incomes for New Zealand families?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, while there's been a great deal of interest in fluctuations in international financial markets, New Zealand remains on track for moderate economic growth. 69,000 more jobs have been created in the last year, 200,000 since early 2011. The average wage is now $57,000, up $10,000 since 2008 and up 3.2% over the last year. And that's against a background of inflation of 0.3%. The business growth agenda also offers a wide range of initiatives designed to support businesses to invest further and hire more people.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Is it correct that every forecast of the economy released in the last few months means that he will fail to even reach the downside scenario of the budget in terms of growth, unemployment and debt?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, no, not necessarily. What's pretty important is that the right adjustments are occurring in the economy. So growth is a bit softer, but lower interest rates, significantly lower exchange rate are likely to support moderate and sustained growth, and we'll get an update in December on the Treasury's view of it and the Reserve Bank's view several times before then.
Supplementary question, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Minister, if things are going so fine, why does he have to get up every day in this House and try and tell us how well things are happening and going? And if it was happening, it would be obvious without him every day trying to defend the situation.
Order. The Honourable Bill English, the first of that question.
It's because I'm so concerned for the welfare of opposition parties who look panicked, crisis-driven and deeply anxious about this economy. And I'm pleased to see the members looking a bit more relaxed this week than last week as a result of the government's assurances.
Question number 2, Andrew Little.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister.